begin recording. And as you can see beside my name in the participants box, you're going to see that there's that little red dot indicating that we are recording here today. So that being said, before we get started, one of the things I do want to share is if you are not involved with an association specialist council, I highly recommend it. It is free for teachers who are active teachers in the province. And so there are 21 different specialist councils across the province. There is Health and Physical Activity Specialist Council, which might be interesting to some of you in this room today. There's also a Middle School Specialist Council, Middle Years Council, that deals with teaching kids in the middle years. And so if these are councils that are of interest to you, I'd highly recommend taking a look at those. And to do that, I'm just going to show you briefly how you would do that. So as I had said before, joining a specialist council comes at no cost to active teachers. And so the way you would join a specialist council is you would log in by coming up here when you get to teachers.ab.ca, and you would hit log in. Once you've logged in, you can scroll down and you can take a look at your specialist council membership. If you have not yet joined a specialist council, when you click to get a specialist council membership, it will say you would like to add my no-cost specialist council membership. If you already have one, you can hit change my no-cost specialist council membership. And so if you're in the career and technology industry or area of teaching, we have an awesome CTech council that works with career and technology teachers. It's a great way to build connections with others from across the province who are doing similar work as you are. And so, as I said, Middle Years Council is a great one. Phys Ed Council is a great, Health and Physical Activity Council is a great one. CTech is a great one for some of the people that would be attending today's session. But if you want any more support or any more information about that, by all means, you can fire me an email and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have with respect to that. But I know that you did not come here to see me today. You came here to hear from Paul. So I will turn it over to Paul Boner from Lethbridge, Alberta, to share with us this project and some of the things that he's been doing with his students. So go ahead, Paul. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, everybody. This is session number 3 for me. So it's a bit of a learning process for me. I don't have 25 faces in front of me. I've got mostly black screens with names. So thanks for that. I'll work on that. I'm looking for feedback at any time. You got questions, fire a question like Chris said into the chat box, or even unmute yourself and just throw it out there. This presentation is a little less formal than the social studies and the science ones I've done, just because of the fact that it's not mandated by the government right now to provide options and phys ed options. So I'm lucky enough to work in a school that decided that was going to be important to our students still. And we've got a group of 6 teachers that I'll introduce in a few minutes that are working specifically on projects with science and social studies as our focus. But before we started that, we decided to try and engage our 600 students with project-based learning through the options and phys ed. So I'm going to share the PowerPoint with you. There's some extra stuff in my PowerPoint that you won't find in the one I uploaded, just because it's part of the explanation rather than what you would need in the future here. So let me just pull that up for you. So just let me know if you can't see it. I'm pretty sure I can see it, or it's working. We called our first project for the month of April. We were given about a week and a half to produce this so that we could roll out with our students. And we thought, well, what's pertinent right now? And considering I was working with 2 phys ed teachers, the shop teacher, the art teacher, and the music teacher, we came up with the Olympic Games as our theme, which was kind of timely because they just canceled or postponed it. And that it gave us a chance to have some common ground amongst all of us that were teaching it, and not get too deep into the content. We wanted kids to make sure that they could work with the software, that they were doing the self-assessments, that they were actually working within Microsoft Teams. That's what we work with in Lethbridge, unfortunately. Those of you that are working with Google Classroom, you would have a lot more flexibility, and I think you have a better format than what we did. So what we did is we formed it into a PowerPoint. And within the PowerPoint, we gave the kids a lot of different options. But we didn't know where to start, and we didn't know how to assess this considering that we weren't giving math. So what we did is we went back to the Alberta Learning and looked at the learning competencies, the 10 that they laid out for us. So we based all of our assessments into the learning competencies. For example, to manage information. Are the students going to be able to connect all the information this way? And we'll use this as an assessment tool on being able to manage the information, or the ability to apply multiple literacies. So they're very generic. They kind of fit really well into the middle school CTF programming, what we call soft skills. And it allowed us to create a rubric that the kids would understand. Once we got our basic idea in place, we decided to follow the project-based learning models that have been out for a number of years now. And this is a picture of what the suggestion is, that you project launch and you provide a rubric for the kids, which we did. And we suggest that they go about finding out some information through some guided questions, some provided resources. And with the knowledge that at the very end here, the final presentation was going to be given to one of the teachers as well as to 3 peers via Zoom or whatever mechanism or software that they would have an app for. So that final presentation is part of the assessment tool and the expectation that they do before the project is completed. So we just follow this model. You can find these kind of models online. And this model particularly shows the different parts of it. And without each one of these cogs, the project-based learning tends to fall down in areas. If the kids see that there is a pattern and a protocol that we would follow every time, we've had a lot of success. In our school right now, in the project-based learning content in science and social studies, we've got about an 89% buy-in. When we first started this with the Olympic Games one, we had a 94%. But a lot of it, I think the drop has come in, it's fallen a little bit because we are now specifically social studies and science for the month of May and June. But in the month of April, this is the one we used. So if we were to take the curriculum of any subject, this is how we presented it to our principal. I've got science up there, but it can be anything. This is what we hope the kids would learn from September to June. The knowledge and skills they would obtain is the shaded in part there now. And the principal would see the achievement, or the parents would see the achievement, and that would keep them quite happy. However, what we're finding with project-based learning, as this rectangular or triangle actually gives you a better indication of what the kids learn when they do the projects. They learn knowledge way beyond the content, the skills way beyond the content, and then they find new areas that they want to research more into. So initially our administrator said, that's great. And I said, well, it's not just one triangle. And without confusing him more, we presented it in a 3-year pattern, because our school is going to continue in this with some major options and potentially in phys ed because of we're uncertain what's going to happen this fall. So the projects are going to stay within our school as either extension programs of phys ed or the CTF program or the actual curriculum within the CTF program. So we presented this to our admin team and some of our parent council, that if we had a curriculum in place and followed the student over 3 years, the achievement would be there, the knowledge and skills would be there if we did it just traditionally. But by introducing projects, what we're seeing is kids are shooting off in different directions, and these triangles are becoming independent depending on the students and their interests. And that's where I think we're getting the buy-in, is that the students have a lot of independent choice. And in any project-based successful program, that's one of the key factors that they suggest that you need. So we're finding kids' effort level. We suggested 2 to 3 hours a week on this, and we're getting some kids that are spending 26 hours on some of their projects, knowing that they're doing this for their own knowledge, because the assessment tool is, as I'll show you in a few minutes, is pretty basic. So to figure out the assessment tool, we went on to the CTF outcomes of Alberta Ed. I worked at another middle school, GS Lakey, a few years ago that started some CTF projects. And we came up with an assessment tool way back then that we've adapted a few different ways. this is what the Alberta Ed suggests you should do with CTF, and this is kind of the rubric that they place out there for you. Instead of numbers, they use words like novice and expert to show a progression of a student. So, if, for example, in grade 7, the student may start a novice in whatever particular project or whatever content that they're in and finish at apprentice. There's no failure, there's no 100% here. What we're showing is progression. And over that 3-year period, you can show a student has gone from a novice in basketball skills or something related to sports and move all the way to proficient by the end of grade 8. It's not that they failed by being a novice, but it definitely shows that they have showed that progression. So what we did is we took those same 10 competencies that the Alberta Ed has given us, and we put that into different templates by putting a category there and then an explanation using those same descriptors from novice all the way to expert. With our projects here at our school, we let the parents know this is the way we were going to assess before we started. We fielded a few questions. We benefited from the fact that the government said that assessment would be formative and not summative. So we didn't have to fight that battle right now. In the past, we have had to convince parents how valuable this type of feedback was instead of getting an 85 in any given subject. So we've got a couple of different rubrics that we follow. And this one has a number value on it. Again, there's not a failure or 100% on it, but this helps give a little bit of numerical feedback. Again, it's used for formative. The projects I'm going to show you today didn't use either of those rubrics, but I'll show you that rubric in a few minutes. So here's the team at our school that we've been working with for the past, almost 2 months now. We divided into 3 teams. We're a grade 6 to 8 school, and each of the teams of 2 deal with about 200 kids. Again, I'm the only core teacher teaching science and social studies. So the past month here and going into June, we're dealing with non-core people teaching the course content through projects. But the phys ed stuff came rather easy comparably to that. So I'm going to share the stuff that we did for the Olympic Games. We emphasized the fact that we were looking at social studies and science through all these projects so that we could blend into the May and June. But this is what we started with. We put down a checklist and a work time allocation. So the kids had an understanding of, okay, there's a driving question, and these 7 steps follow the project-based learning steps. You're dealing with everything from a driving question all the way to doing a challenge and finishing with a presentation. The students themselves then could budget their time to make sure that they weren't spending too much time on any given area. And it seemed to have helped hit our deadlines. We gave students a week to finish each project. We released it Monday morning, and the deadline was Friday. We continually get stuff that's late, but like I said, most of this stuff we received on time. So this is what the students saw. It looks similar to a bingo card. It's color-coded for a reason. I'll explain that in a sec. But these are the 24 projects that we developed for the month of April. Everything dealing specifically with the Olympic theme, divided sort of by grade, but not really, because all 3 grades were eligible to take any of the 24 and take it to the level where they were able to go. On the bottom left corner here, you'll see color coding to the colors. If it was social studies related, it was more of a dark maroon. The health and foods was a yellow or a gold. Design studies, phys ed was the red colors. But each student could decide how much they wanted to do within that curriculum. Some of the science presentations are more phys ed based, anatomy based. Some of the foods ones are more science based. So that's why it's that's the way we worked it. So all a student had to do, for example, is click on, okay, I'm kind of interested in composers of Olympic game music. They clicked on that, it took them to a slide. And within that slide, there's some guiding questions on the left here. Gave them a little bit of background, possible resources, and then usually the direct curriculum links to music. So this would be a good example for music. Students could go through that, decide, well, no, I don't want to do that. They click on this back the project grid, and they would go through here. So international scandals in the Olympic Games, social studies related. Again, there's some background information, project kind of guiding questions or ideas here, some resources, which outcomes were met. And once they decided on one of the 24, they would go into their particular grade. Because we have so many grade 7s, our software limited that. So that's why there's 2 different grade 7s here. We just couldn't put them all into one group. You would click on this. Once you picked your topic, you would go here and get an approval form. So if I click on this, which I hope I don't have to share a new screen with you, but I might. Chris, can you let me know if this doesn't come up as, did the form come up, or do I need to
No,
share?
you should need to share the new screen because it's no longer in the PowerPoint. So just under share screen, you can just hit new share.
Okay, so I'll show you what the form looked like here. We built this within Microsoft. The kids had to go, and this showed us the initial engagement. Once the children had gone through the PowerPoint, they would go in there, click on whichever one they did, and submit. And by that time, we knew, okay, the kids were going to work on this. They were bought in already Monday afternoon, or Tuesday afternoon, or Thursday night before it was due. But at least we know how many kids out of the 200 in grade 7 were doing and what they were doing. So we used that as a form. And that gave us the starting point for the kids to get going. And I'm sure Google Classrooms has something similar to that. So if I go back to my PowerPoint, that was step number 2. Number 3 was the teachers were to give approval. And with the approval, it was almost, we'd get notification that a student had done a form. And it was almost instantaneous. Sometimes it was, if they did it at night, we wouldn't see it till the morning. Once the students got approval from us with a note in Teams, they began their project, did the research, went through what they needed to. Once they got to step number 5, they would go through and do a self-assessment. And I'll pull up a self-assessment one here. Grade 6, 8, 7, and 8 are all the same. They were all the same assessment tools. Let me just pull up that. So they were to put their name of their project, help us track. They were to give themselves a training, bronze medal, a silver medal, or gold medal, following the rubric that they had from before, and go through the 13 quick checklists. And they would share that then with the staff members so that we could compare that to what we thought, and gave them some self-assessment. So after that, the kids waited for our self-assessment piece back to them, which was almost the same rubric, and they can compare their results with what they submitted to what we gave them. And then we would say, okay, you're at the end of project number 1, which was the end of hopefully the week. And we started the same process week 2, week 3, and week 4. So the expectation for our grades 6 to 8 was to have 4 done through the month of April. And they had to specifically choose one that was science related and one that was social studies related, and the other 2 were wide open. So I've got some exemplars that I'll share in a few minutes. Everything from composing music to poetry to art. We had physical training programs for Olympic athletes. Every one of our 24 was selected by a certain percentage of our students. The COVID-19 one was really popular. Imagine that. Science and Olympic sports. We didn't have a lot of parameters that they had to follow other than the guiding questions, because it was more of an engagement tool for us to get kids involved. And now that we have them involved, their social studies has been running much more smoothly. They're used to the protocol. If we continue this in the fall by chance, our phys ed teachers are planning to use this as a means to do weekly workout regimes, or specifically skill development, depending on the the particular sport that they're working on that week. So I can take some questions right now, or before I pull up the exemplars, and make any of that more clear if that helps. Otherwise, I will show you the exemplars. you seen any, Chris, in the side box? I haven't been looking at that.
There hasn't been any questions in the side box, but are there any questions at all for Paul before we see some exemplars?
Paul, I have a question.
Okay.
Were they doing the majority of the work online, or was there an option to do it either online or off?
Well, they'd have to get the PowerPoint from an online. We could email it to them, I guess, the PowerPoint, because it was an interactive PowerPoint. We have taken in drawings and paintings and things like that where these kids submitted it electronically through a picture. They haven't dropped anything off at the school, no. We haven't done anything like that.
Okay. It looks cool.
But there's lots of activities that they can do without computers, and then just the final submission is the computer. Is that correct?
Right, and it could be as simple as a photo or a video. You know, we are taking some assignments in through the front door at our school, but we haven't had any for our projects. The kids have seemed to find that ability to connect with their phones. We're lucky in our school too that we're a one-to-one laptop school, so each of our students has a laptop within our school, the touch screen. So that's helped us with dispensing the information, that's for sure.
Lisa had a question here, Paul. Were the students typically working independently or with a partner?
It's all independent. We had no control over if they actually shared it with each other, but it was definitely an independent project. The expectation is that each of the kids had a different project each week. We had a couple of, let's say, similar projects a couple of weeks apart. So they may have been sharing projects online with each other or how to do things. We didn't find any exact ones, so that's good. We chalk that up to resourcefulness and just using a different resource when they would share with each other. So in our projects, we had three contacts. We had the submission for approval, we had the self-assessment, and then the teacher assessment. So it was nice to connect with each kid 3 times a week, whether it was electronic. Sometimes we would connect with Teams, just with the chat or with the video. But yeah, they were expected to do it independently. So keep coming with the questions, but I'll share my screen here of the some exemplars here. Again, we tried to pick, I would say, some of the upper average to average. We didn't pick the best ones, but we didn't want to make it so it seemed like we were, superstars. Let's see. So I put them all into one PowerPoint to make it easy. And if I just put this in, I can just show you this slide point. This is an example of the player cards. They did some research on different athletes from Canada. The expectation was, where they live, the highlights of their career, that kind of thing. The goal behind this was to take those 4 cards that I showed you, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours of work in a week. Some kids probably were able to bite this off in about half an hour if they knew where to look. But again, some kids took 5 hours. And some kids just kept looking. They said, can we submit up to 10 cards? Well, that would be up to you, but that's way beyond the stipulation. This one is an example of hand-drawn ones that the kid just took pictures. They did a little bit of art tied into it, and that they artistically came up with the design, that kind of thing. But again, it's the same kind of information, so that was also one. One of the projects was to come up with Olympic medals and give us the background on Olympic medals. So they did a little bit of research on the sumo wrestling, a little bit on the art, the idea of the temples, those kind of things with this particular thing. So I gave kids that weren't necessarily 100% academically engaged a chance to share and still do some of the information. And I think that's why we got such a positive buy-in by the students. This one was just a piece of art submitted by one of the grade 7s. He was talking about potential of Olympic events and X Games kind of thing. Some of the more formalized ones were something like this one from Sophia, the origin of the Olympics. She talked about the origin, talked about some of the history of ancient Athens, so that tied into the grade 6 social studies really nicely. Who participated in the particular outfits, those types of things. The modern games birth, and then talked about the different types of events and athletes, those types of things. Another one was climate, water, waste, climate, and environmental impact of the Olympic Games. This particular student took a science focus on this one, and they had the guiding questions and went through answering everything from water usage to climate change impact, what to travel, waste management afterwards, what they do is some of the venues, for example, in Rio, the abandoning of venues and things like that, the amount of money that's lost. So a student again could go, and do a master's thesis on this really, if they wanted to. So our hope is that they would engage in a topic that they thought was really positive. Then they hopefully reference their resources. We had some kids submit stuff through Minecraft. This particular stadium was built by a student. And I think what I could tell, it looked more like an ancient Athens Olympic Stadium with the hurdles or the infield and the shape. But I think his explanation was, this took me a long time to do it. So I'm not sure if he was complaining or bragging, I'm not sure. But again, we didn't ask him to spend that much time on it. Well, you can tell if for those of you that have any connection with Minecraft, you know that this would have taken a fair bit of time. Designing an Olympic arena or venue was one of the options. So Oscar here is a water polo kid. So he was invested in this and took some pride in the fact that he had some connections here. And he created a video here that of his Minecraft, and I couldn't get it to work, but he created a water polo pool. So just to give you an idea that the kids had done a variety of different things. Gave an explanation of why he decided to design it that way. And this is another one on ancient Greek architecture. They did some background principal materials. So this tied into grade 7 structures. For some reason, this is all wacky. So she tied this into grade 7 science and did some background on ancient Athens Olympics. Again, probably spent 2 to 3 hours on this. Not too much, but when you consider they had math and language arts still to do, it was great that they would do that much work. COVID, like I said, was one of the more popular ones, and this is the last or second last example I'll show you. They went on, and the questions were pretty general, whether they had an opinion answer or if they actually did the research on this. The postponement of the games was looked at. We took a look at what would happen in the future if there was a similar situation. What have they learned from it? Could they do the events in the same country always? So have a basic Olympic Games, the Summer Olympics always in one venue, or the Winter Games always in one venue. And then the last question for them to consider is, could the Olympic Games be held virtually? And so the idea of giving grades or marks for diving or timing track. The discussion that came up with this particular student's presentation was quite in depth. So we had some engagement there. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to show you one more. This young lady did a poem, almost song. So I think the audio should click in. I might have to adjust the audio because it's coming right off the net. So Chris, if you can't hear audio right, the project has had a lot of success. It's going to help us model our project-based learning next fall, whether we're back in class or if we're virtual. The assessment piece is manageable for our teachers. We're dealing with 600 kids with 6 teachers. So again, 5 of them are not in their comfort zone of curriculum in May and June here with science and social studies, but We design it in such a way that the kids they know the protocol, they follow the same order, that they have a lot of choice in how they do it and how they present it. The idea of them presenting the content to us and to their peers is all part of the project-based learning and the CTF suggestions. So we're kind of going beyond what the expectation was with the core, the non-core, and phys ed. So we've had lots of success. And when I offered this session to Chris, he thought, well, yeah, there might be some other people out there that could use this to finish off the school year. The PowerPoint is self-contained, 24 options there. You can have a kid do a project every 2 weeks, every week. One a week was reasonable, considering how much work time they had when they had to factor in their other core subjects. So other than that, it's a bit quicker today, Chris, but
no problem. I actually have a lot of questions about how to access this, and the link that I sent out wasn't working as well. So what I'm going to do right now, if it's okay with you, is I'm just going to share how they can find those slides as well, Paul.
Okay.
So I just threw, or I'm about to throw, a bit.ly link. So there's a web link in your chat box there, and I'm going to show where that web link is going to bring you to. So that web link will bring you to this Teachers AV LibGuides, and so this is something that the ATA has been building for teachers. So there's a number of resources along the top here, whether it be coping for crisis. So there's some wellness resources, some online teaching tools, some virtual field trips, and then your upcoming and recorded webinars resource here as well on the right-hand side. So once you click on this upcoming recorded webinars, it actually brings you to the Sched page of all the different sessions that we've put on throughout the past. So for example, if you're looking for today's, you'd be looking for Tuesday, May 12th, and you would click on this 2020 Olympics Physical Education. And then right there at the bottom is going to see that shareable PowerPoint there for you. So if you click that, it'll allow you to download that piece. If you have someone else who wants to see sort of how it worked or what it looked like, and they wanted to see the recorded video, usually by tomorrow morning, by about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got it in here, and then it would just show afterwards, it would show recording available. So if I was to come back out and you were saying, well, this was interesting, I'd like to see what Paul did for his science classes. I think that was last Thursday, Paul. So here's science classes. And so where it says recording available now, if you click on that one, you'll be able to click on this recording link and it would start showing the video that Paul had did. Also at the bottom, there's that PowerPoint that Paul shared with us for project-based science lessons for grades 6 through 9. So those are ways that you can access some of those ones. But if you're just trying to say, well, how do I do some of this technology stuff as well, or how do I do some of these other ones? Anytime we have a recording available, there's the square brackets and it says recording available afterwards. There are some that we don't have recordings available because they're more discussion based and they're not there. But if you come over to this, if you filter by type, you can filter by just for recorded webinars. And then you'll be able to see all the recorded ones and be able to look at all the dates if you would like. So these are all the ones that we've got recorded. And you could also take a look at technology tools. And if you're saying, well, I want to try to use Google Forms, because Paul talked about using Microsoft Forms for their projects, but you want to use, but if you're a Google school, you can look at Google Forms. If you click on the Google Forms button, you'll see that we have getting started with Google Forms for summative and assessment. So this session here, we'll talk about how to use Google Forms in your assessments and having them do some self-marking and things like that. This session here talks about how to use Google Forms with branching. So if you answer one way, that it takes you one direction in the Google form. If you answer another way, it takes you in a different direction. So those are some ways that you can take a look at. So there's recording and slides available for both of those if you're interested at all. But this is the site where we post all of our sessions every week. And so every week we've been running about 12 to 16 sessions a week that teachers can have access to. If there's things that we're missing that we would like, I mean, we heard last week or 2 weeks ago, we heard science and social, science and social, science and social, because it's sort of the forgotten subject in this time of the year, right? And so we've started putting some science and social in. But if there's things that you would like us to take a look at, then you can by all means fire myself an email or someone on our team an email, and we will try to find how we can support teachers in that manner. So these are some of the sessions that are upcoming this week. We typically have our sessions posted to this site by Friday at 1 o'clock is our goal, because we know that there are some teachers across the province that have to have a work plan into their principal by Friday at 4. for what they're doing next week. And so if you're in that jurisdiction that you have to do that, then by Friday at 1, we typically have the sessions loaded, and you can throw those into your work plan as well if that's something of interest to you. Also, we know that there's some jurisdictions that they're asking their teachers not to do PD during the day. And if that's your jurisdiction, then you can also take a look at these sessions that are done. You can have them in the evenings. And then if there are requests, we have done sessions specifically in the evenings as well, but we have found that those haven't been as well attended as the ones during the day. So we don't do as many of those. So that's going to be found on that bit.ly in the ATA PD resources there. But if anybody has any further questions at all, by all means, Paul and I will be able to hang around here. If there's ways that we can support you, by all means, for sure, let us know. As I said at the beginning, I work with the ATA in professional development. My email is on your chat box as well. And if there's anything that we can do, by all means, let us know. I absolutely love working with teachers and love working in schools. It's one of my favorite things about my job that I have the privilege of doing. So if there's things that we can do to support you in this crazy, crazy time, let us know and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
And just a little point from me, if you find that the PowerPoint is a little clumsy or something like that, and you want to fire me an email just to clarify something, feel free to send me an email directly if that helps.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, everybody.